What is up, everyone? It's David. Welcome back to Gem Mint MTG, where we talk about all things related to graded Magic the Gathering cards. So today is going to be a fun day. I've talked for a while about how I wanted to do another grading submission. It's been a few months for me since I did one, and since the last time I got really burned by Beckett, one of the things that I wanted to do was try out a different grading company. Previously, all of my submissions did go to Beckett, but I decided that I wanted to change things up a little bit, and I wanted to spend some time going through some cards and talking about which company I'm going to submit, which cards I'm going to submit, and why, and take a look at the cards to get an idea how I think they're going to grade out. If you appreciate content like this, I'd appreciate your subscription to this channel. It's the best way to support this channel with just the click of a button, so hit that subscribe button and join in the fun. Let's start off by going through which company I'm going to use and why. So the company that I'm going to be using is called PCG Grading, Premier Card Grading. Why I'm choosing this company to grade with, it's a few reasons. First off, I like that they specialize in TCGs and they're not involved in sports cards from what I understand. I think that one of the issues with Beckett and PSA and things like that is there can be, in my experience, there can be a lot of variance in terms of how your cards get graded based on who gets the cards. And I could see a company that doesn't have a specific focus having cards, misgraded for whatever reason. It's a new grader, someone who's not used to seeing those types of cards or something like that. But I really like that PCG focuses on TCG, specifically Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood. But for me, it's nice to know that they focus on Magic the Gathering cards. The next thing is I really like the label. I feel like the label is very attractive. It has a good look to it. It's sophisticated. It's clean. It's not overdone or gaudy. It's kind of got just a nice, clean, sophisticated look, and I really like that. Another thing that they have going for them right now is very quick turnaround times. It says that the cards will be back in 7 days. Maybe not back in 7 days, but the grading process takes 7 days, which is great. So between, sending the cards in, getting them shipped back, getting them graded, I'm estimating this to be like a 2 or 3 week endeavor, which is very nice because with Beckett, it takes forever and the customer service is very, very lacking. And there's various times in the grading process where you don't really know what's happening with your cards, where they are, how long it's going to be. And that can be pretty frustrating. So I'm hoping to have a pretty quick turnaround time as well. And the other thing that I really like is that subgrades are included in the pricing. For Beckett, it's an extra fee to get your cards graded with subgrades, which I never really liked because for me, for the most part, I'm always going to choose to get subgrades. So it's like, it automatically makes the grading cost pretty substantially higher, from $25 a card to like $35 a card. And that's for like the basic level of service. And finally, I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to mention. Subgrades. Oh, also, they have a new label available, which I had heard about from Saint, from Fabled Hunters. He had mentioned to me that they had a metal label in the works that looked really, really nice. And I was waiting until I saw that option available to send my cards in. And I was just checking the website and I saw that for an extra $9, you can get your cards with that metal label. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that looks. I thought that's going to be kind of neat. So it is going to cost a little bit more to have that, $9, but since I'm getting subgrades included with the cost of my cards, it's really not costing all that much more. In fact, the total grading cost per card is still substantially lower than grading with Beckett. So I feel like there's a lot going for PCG right now, and I just want to give them a try. from what I've seen, their grades have been fair and accurate, and that's all that I ever ask from a grading company, for the grades to be fair, for the grades to be accurate. So that's why I'm choosing PCG. Which cards am I grading? I'm going to go through them here. I've got a couple revised cards here. I've got some Silver Age cards, some newer cards here. Got a nice assortment of cards to go through. Since this is my first submission with them, I'm not going crazy. It's just, we got like 7-8 cards here to look at, but I want to go through the cards, get them under the camera so that we can look at them and get an idea for how I think that the grades are going to come out, and just kind of document what these cards look like prior to their submission, so we can go back and then take a look at how the grades came out and see if we feel like they were fair and accurate in their grading. To be honest with you, before we even get into a specific card, I've gone through my cards that are in grade-worthy condition, and I handpicked these because I think all of these are mint condition or gem mint cards. So right off the bat, there's really no like beater cards in here that I just wanted to get like authenticated. You know, these are cards that I expect to get in a high grade. So with that out of the way, let's start off here. We're just going to kind of go oldest to newest. This is 2 cards from Revised, a copy of Balance and a copy of Artifact. Getting started off here with this Revised Balance. Going to try to look at the camera here. So right off the bat, this card has really nice centering. That's like the number one for me. I think that this card is pretty much perfectly centered. So I would expect a hopefully 9.5 on centering. It seems like, you know, if you're really, really nitpicking, there's a very slight bend, twist to the left in the centering. But it's very, very slight. You know, to the naked eye glancing at this card, this looks like a very nicely centered card. The edges on this card are also very, very nice. There's no considerable wear anywhere. If you look at that, camera seems to be picking this up pretty well. This is a new camera. Look at that. Really nice, clean edges. I don't see any noticeable edge wear on this card. This is a very nice specimen. Look at that. That's actually a pretty good angle for looking at the edges. Yes, look at that. Really nice clean edges. Okay, let's take a look at the corners of this card. You can see the corners are very nice. This is a good angle to get the surface. I don't see any major surface defects. It looks like right there, at the right angle, there. It's very slight, but there's a couple things. There's actually right down here, there. There's a surface defect there, and it looks like there could be a minor scuffing here in this side. So I feel like it's fair to say that this card does not have gem mint surface. So I don't expect to get like a 10 on the surface of this card. But, you know, I do expect at least subgrade lower or a full subgrade lower in the surface department because of that defect there. So it'll be interesting to see with this card where that surface grade comes out. Let's take a look at the front. For me, it's always a little harder to judge the front of the card because it's much harder to pick up those surface issues on a lighter surface, especially on a white card like this. But the surface looks pretty good. There's nothing that I can see on the front of the card that looks like a surface defect. So there's the Balance, very nicely centered, nice clean corners, really nice crisp edges, very minor surface defect on the back here. So overall, I do feel like this is a mint or gem mint card, but I could see that this surface issue, you know, causing the surface grade to be a 9.5 or 9, or if they're very strict, maybe it's an 8.5. But it's going to be interesting to see how this card comes out. Let's put that back in there. Oh, and before we get on to the next card, the reason that I'm wearing gloves, I don't always wear gloves when I'm reviewing cards, but in this instance, I have two really bad cuts on on both of my thumbs, and I had to wear band-aids all day, and it's just not good for me to be handling cards for a very long period of time with, you know, open cuts on my hands. So I'm wearing some gloves to protect my hands and to protect the cards. It's not necessary to do this. Okay, so let's take a look at this copy artifact. This card was originally going to go to Beckett, but I already have since acquired more than one graded BGS graded copy of copy artifact. So I was like, I'm going to send this one in. Again, very nicely centered. Very nicely centered card. Surface looks really nice on the front. I'm not picking anything up on the surface. Let's take a look at the corners of this card. Once again, very, very nice. There on this top edge here, there's a little bit of, it almost looks like, it's not dust, but it's just a very, very slight edge wear on that top edge right there. So that's fair. But the corners are still very nice and clean. Edge is really nice. Just get a look at these edges. Nice clean edges. There's a little bit of edge wear down here. Very slight. It's not it's like from far away, you know, it's the kind of thing like you don't really even see it on the card, but you have to remember this is how the card's going to be looked at. You really need to nitpick the card and be honest with yourself. You're not going to fool a grader. If your card has edge wear, you know, it doesn't mean don't submit it, but you know, don't expect to get a 10 on edges when there's something like that. But I think that, you know, with very, very minor stuff like that, you can still get 9 and 9.5 edges. It's when you have like those severe indentations or scratches that, you know, you get into the 7s and 8s on edges, in my experience. So yeah, let's take a look at the back surface of the back. Also looks very nice. On this section right here, I'll try to get it on the camera, right there, there's a little bit of just kind of surface wear. Right, yeah, right in this area, there's a little bit of surface wear. And a little bit on this back edge here, right there. So a couple surface issues on aside from that, the back looks really nice. I mean, for the most part, I'd say about 90 to 95% of this surface is immaculate. But you've got just a couple things up here and a little thing right here, but no like indentations in the surface. There's no like, you know, actual gouges or anything. So I still think that the surface of this card could be a mint surface. Again, it just depends on how they grade the surface. And this, I don't have any experience with this company, so it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how much they ding the surface for issues like that. So let's go ahead and put the copy artifact away. So copy artifact, I would say, you know, I think it's got really good centering. I expect 9.5 or 10 centering. Actually, let me look at the back before I say that. The back also looks very nicely centered. So I expect a 9 or 9.5 on the copy artifact, but I could see the surface being the reason that it gets a 9. Okay, moving on. So let's go over some Silver Age cards. Come on, you knew it was coming, right? So this is 3 copies of Zerlin of the Claw. If you're new to this channel, this is like my pet card. I absolutely love this card. I've been collecting it for years. I have many, many, many copies of it. I have many graded copies of it from different companies. I have the the Pop 1, highest graded one, Beckett one. It's just kind of my card. I absolutely love it. I've been talking about it for years, but I thought it would be great to send in some Zero Lands to this company and try to get, you know, a really high grade Zero Land from yet another company. I thought that would be cool. So that's why I'm choosing this card. This is not a very, you know, expensive card or anything. It's just kind of a pet card of mine that I really like and would like to see in another company's slab. So I'm not going to spend too much time on each one of these because there's 3 of them and I don't want this video to be an hour long. So let's just take it. Let's take a look at this guy. Zero Land has, for me, been hard to find well-centered. So I pulled 3 of my best centered ones out there that still had, you know, really good edges, corners, and surfaces as well. But this card, again, very, very nicely centered. Edges look nice. Let's take a look. I don't see any edge wear on that side. I don't see anything on that side. On this side, you've got a little ring dinger right there. Again, it's another one of those things like from here, it's very, very minor. It doesn't really, you know, affect the card. You know, just from like naked viewing, you don't really see it, but when you really look up close, there is edge wear right there. So I don't expect this card to get, you know, 10 on the edges, but I do think, you know, based on the rest of the edges, that this should be mint edges. I don't think a very, very, very minor defect like that, you know, should ding it down to, you know, 7 or 8 edges or anything like that. I do still expect the edges to get 9 or 9.5. Let's take a quick look at the surface. Nothing major. There's a very small right there. See that? Just a little smudge there. But aside from that, surface is very nice. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Again, quick look at the edges. Very nice. Corners too. Look at that corner. Very nice corner. Very nice corner. Very nice corner. Very nice corner. I mean, those corners are crispy, crispy, crispy. This is a very, very nice copy of this card. Surface issues, I don't see anything. There's, on this one, I remember seeing this and not being very sure what it is. It looks almost like some type of like discoloration. Like if you hold 2 copies of this card next to each other, you see how this one just has like a little bit of like kind of shading here? It's really weird. It's really hard to describe. It's not like a smudge. It's not ink. I promise you it's not ink. I didn't ink this card. But it's just something that I noticed that I'm not really sure how to diagnose, to be honest with you. Like, you know, from here, you don't really see anything. It just looks like a normal edge. But when you hold it up to the right light there, you see how it just has a little bit of discoloration? Yeah, there. I don't know what that is. So it's going to be interesting to see if that is marked down in any way, because it looks like it almost might be like from the factory like that. I'm not sure how that type of wear or discoloration would happen in real life, but another really nice copy of Zero Land. And one more. I hope this is the other one. Did I pick up the same one? So I'll know when I go back and watch the video. Okay, so we got edge rare right down there. Oh wait, is this the one that I looked at already? Oh shoot, now I don't know which one This is the one with the thing. That's the one with the edge. This should be the other one. Okay, sorry. Okay, once again, very, very nice corners. This one has a little bit more edge wear there on that top edge. You see that? It's just a little bit rougher. It's not bad. It's just a little bit rougher. You know, from afar, you don't really notice it. When you really get up close, you can see there's just a little bit more fraying in that edge. So that's fair. It's fair to say that those edges are not, you know, pristine 10. But the rest of the edges are very, very nice. Let's take a look at the surface of this card. Okay. Not really much going on the surface here. It looks very, very nice. Right there, it looks like there's just a little bit of like a smudge there. See that? So that could be an issue there. So once again, you know, very, very minor stuff here. Very, very minor stuff here. Overall, the card's a little bit off-centered to the right side. You can see that. You know, so I don't, and I'll maybe a little bit top to bottom. So this is not a perfectly centered card. So I'm going to be interested to see on this one where the centering grade comes out, because, you know, I've seen cards with centering like this that get 8 centering, and cards like this that get 9.5 centering at Beckett. A sip of tea. It's Sunday evening. I'm having a tea and hanging out with you all. I'll post this tomorrow morning. But yeah, I mean, overall, a little bit off-centered, minor surface defect on the back. Still feel like this is a mint condition card. Okay, now let's make a little bit of room here. Okay. And oh, by the way, this is a very large felt piece of fabric that I got cut at Michael's that I use for analyzing graded cards. I like having a nice soft surface that's enormous. Like this thing is about 5 feet wide and 5 feet by 3 feet. All the space you could need. It's very easy to pick up cards from this surface. You don't have to, like, you know, try to pick up the card with your fingertips or anything. So highly recommend you get something like that to pick your cards with on. Don't ever put your cards that you want to grade on like a hard surface. Okay, let's go over fun card. This is just a fun card. Really not much financial value. This is just another one of my favorite cards that I wanted to get graded, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to send it in to this company. This is Griffin Canyon. This is another card that I talked about in one of my first videos as being like an underrated card, especially in Commander. I always just love the artwork on this card. It's just, the artwork is, the more you look at it, it's really breathtaking. And I always thought it was just a cool, unique card. It's from one of my favorite sets, Visions. Growing up, I remember I got a box of Visions when it first came out. And it's just a card that has a lot of nostalgic value, and I think is underappreciated for being really cool, unique reserve list card. But anyway, let's take a look at this guy. Once again, nice edges here. I don't see anything noteworthy on that edge. That edge also looks good. This edge, there's a little dinger over there. You see that? That right there. So I could, you know, this is not a pristine edge card with that on there. But it's pretty minor. You know, I could see something like that being, you know, a half point or something like that. But the rest of the edges are really good. The corners here, really nice corners from the front. I don't see anything noteworthy on these front corners. They all look really nice and clean. Overall, the card is centered well. It's a little bit off-centered to the right here. You can see there's a little bit more border space on the left here. So this is going to be another one to see. It's going to be interesting to see how it comes out centered wise. I feel like top to bottom, it's pretty much centered fine. There's just a little bit of off centered to the right on this one. And on the back, so the back, the corner looks pretty good. This corner, there's a very, very fine, yep, see that? And it's not like it almost looks like yeah, it's not like an indentation. It doesn't cut into the card. It almost like protrudes from the card. It's kind of hard to pick it up on camera, but you see there? It's almost like it was just a little bit cut over or something. So not something that, looks like damage to the card, but maybe just a little off-cut corner. This corner looks pretty nice. So on this one, you've got the edge dinger over there, and then a little bit of off-centered left to right. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one comes back on the centering and the edges. Okay, just a couple more cards to go through. Another one of my favorites from the Silver Age. This is Mind Over Matter. I already have a couple different copies of this graded with BGS, and I absolutely love the card. Another underrated, undervalued reserve list card of mine that I really, really like. Always love the artwork on this with Urza looking through the, kind of through the portal with the weatherlight coming through. It's just a really neat card. So this card, overall, centered very well. I feel like the centering on this card is fantastic. The corners here look quite nice. I don't really see any noticeable corner wear on these front edges. Let's take a look at the back. Oh, we got a couple little dingers down there. Let me find the right light to find them. There, you see there? Okay, a couple very minor surface things there. Just make sure that's not a... Yeah, so got a little bit of surface going on down there. So I could see, this surface coming out as, 9 or 9.5, depending on if they count this as just, one general area. I've heard so many theories about how surface is graded, but every company is different. Some I've heard that where it's like there's certain sections of the card, and depending on how many sections have surface issues, that's how many subgrades you're going to go down. And then I've heard it's each individual one. There's more weight towards surface issues that are on one side or the other side. Like, it's all a black box, and in the end, it's up to the grader what your card is going to get. So I just like pointing out issues like this to try to see if you can get an idea of where they are in terms of how they grade different issues, particularly for surface and stuff like that. So let's take a look. Not too much else going on. The surface looks pretty nice otherwise from that. So really nice corners, really nicely centered, nice clean edges on this one. But again, a couple surface issues, which, to be honest with you, if you haven't noticed already, surface is extremely hard to keep clean on cards that are 25, 30 years old. It's just very difficult. Okay, and last one, this is a newer card. This is a new card. This card does not have a lot of financial value, but it's just a really cool looking card that I thought would look, to be honest, I just thought it would look awesome in their slab, especially if it gets a really high grade. It's got the look for their slab. And Bolus the Citadel, it's just such a broken card. This card is absolutely ridiculous. But the artwork is really neat. I really like this retro foil that they did. This was a promotional card. So there's a lot of these around. out there. They're not terribly expensive or anything, but I scooped up a few copies of this when it first came out, and I knew that they were going to be in just pristine condition, just because I knew I wanted to get one graded one day. I just really like the card. Let's take a look. In terms of curling, there's not, I mean, it's not perfectly flat. I'm not going to lie and say it's perfectly flat, but in terms of, modern foils, it's not too bad. It's got a slight curl to it, but it's fine. Like when it's laying down, you barely notice. But let's take a look at these edges. They look pretty good. Okay. Yeah, okay, let's take a look there. Look really nice. I don't expect anything major on this. Like I said, this is pretty much a completely unplayed pack to sleeve kind of card, It didn't come in a pack, but you know what I mean. So overall, no major surface defects that I can see here. All of the corners are in very, very good condition. It looks like there's a little bit of off-centered, and it's more apparent on the back side than the front. Like, to me, the front of this card looks really nicely centered. But when you flip it over to the back, it does look like on this one, it's offset. It weights to the right here on the back. So that's going to be another interesting one to see how that comes out, because you don't look at the back of the card, right? The front of the card looks pretty nicely centered, but the back of it definitely does have a little bit of left to right off-centeredness. Is that a word? So that's another one that's going to be interesting to come out. If they only really judge the front, or if they put more weight on the front, I could see this coming out as, 9.5 or 10 centering. But if they put just as much weight on the back as the front of the card, then, maybe this card does get, 8.5 or 9 or, maybe 8 centering because of the weight, because the way the back is centered. And another one that's going to be interesting to compare the overall grades. Okay, so that's the 8 cards that I'm submitting. This took a little longer than I wanted to. Thanks for sticking with me here, but I thought this would be fun to kind of go through how I look at cards before I grade them. These were, this is kind of like my second round of looking at them. I take all of my cards and do like a pretty thorough review of the card just to decide whether it goes to the I might grade this pile or I'm definitely not going to grade this pile. So these are called all cards out of the I would grade this, I might grade this pile. But it's also a good record for when the cards come back. We can see how this company treats these cards and the different issues that we pointed out, from looking at them in really high definition, kind of from all angles, judging the corners, the centering, the edges, the surface. I feel like we got a really good handle on, just how good these cards are and what issues, the grading company could see when it comes to actually giving them grades. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. I'm going to do a follow-up video after I send these cards in that should be available hopefully pretty soon. I always do my grading submissions live. I open the box with you all and record it. So this will be no different. As soon as these cards come back, I will open the box on camera and we'll do a nice box opening and see how these grades came out. So thanks so much for watching. Until next time, thanks. Have a great one.